Hello guys, I hope you're doing good. Today we talk about being social and being dyslexic and the 5 things that kind of be really difficult being social as when we're dyslexic. And I remember seeing these, understanding these, and they really felt like, oh my God, I was doing these every single day. So I hope you would feel the same as we go through this episode. So the big question is this: how can dyslexics like us create a place, a community, a tribe where people at any stage of life can come and solve any challenge, amplify their strengths, and ultimately help them become who they were meant to be, or in other words, conquer their dyslexia? That is the question, and this show is the answer. My name's Theo Goff, and welcome to the Conquering Dyslexia podcast. Hello guys, I hope we're doing good. Today I want to talk to us about 5 reasons why dyslexics find it hard to socialise. And I first want to say we find it hard to socialise because we do certain things, and I'm going to list 5 basically common things that I remember. I didn't come up with this list, but I basically looked at a post about this list by Think Dyslexia and on Instagram, and I looked through them and I was like, oh my God, this is so true for me. Every single one of these I do all the time. And I looked at the list and I was like, wow. And I really I saw this the other day. I was really thinking about it for like a good old while, and I asked questions to other dyslexics, and I was sort of like found it really interesting that there are social things that I find harder than other people. No doubt about that. Now, is that a reason for me not to be social? Is that a reason for me to not do things or not go pursue things? No, it's not. And for me to say, I can't be social because I've got these difficulties is not a valid excuse at all, because not being social in the long run can be massively detrimental. And if you're not being social just because you find these little things hard, then why would you do that? And if you find these hard, then that's kind of giving into your dyslexia and letting your dyslexia use you. Because I first off want to say that this socially, most people, I would say most people, or at least half, or just less than half, I would say comfortably more than most people, find social interactions hard. Find a social interaction, talking to people, hard at some point. They think about it, they dread it, they don't want to say awkward things, they don't come across awkward, they don't want to do that, because guess what? People are social creatures, and the more socially inept you are, and the more socially basically intelligent you are, which dyslexics are very, very socially intelligent, the more we think about ourselves. The more we think about, I don't want to say the wrong thing, I don't want to do that, this will look stupid. And one of the big reasons why we think this, and we think this especially as dyslexics, is because we're very, very socially intelligent. We're very intelligent about understanding people, understanding conversations, understanding even the little cues that people give off for me to understand their emotion at the time. Because that's one of dyslexics' massive strengths. Because if you listen to this, you're dyslexic, or your child's dyslexic, or whoever, one of the strengths like would be speaking to people one-on-one. Because when you speak to people one-on-one, and the first thing is, you know what you want to talk about, and you know why you're talking to this person. You're talking to this person to have fun. You're talking to this person because you're a long-term friend. You're talking to this person in a job interview. You're talking to this person because you want to find out this information, because you want to make friends with them for this thing. You'll be very socially adept to talking to this one person, because you can understand, you can look at their face, you can judge certain things, you can say certain things in a certain way, which will be good. But when there's 3 people in the mix, it is hard. Because if you want to get, and so basically, when I say a certain outcome, I don't mean to be like, oh yeah, you just focus on like socially to get a certain outcome, and people aren't like that. Well, people are. People talk to people because they want an outcome, either to feel connected, either to talk to someone because they want to have a good time, they want to laugh, they want to get something off their chest, they want to understand something about the other person. And so people have these goals. Like goals, this little thing that you want. So in a group of people, oftentimes when you have a goal like that, like you want to know more about this particular person or this thing, or you want to have a good time or whatever, when you try and do that, like this is for me, I'm completely speaking out of like own personal experience. When I try and do that, it can often feel like the group is alienating me. They're not in any way, but often feels like, hold on, this ain't the flow of the conversation. But I find it very, very, very hard to stick to that flow of conversation. And I remember, this is a story when it all comes back for me, being a kid in my little dyslexic school and having these basically social skill classes in a group of people. And one big thing was basically learning when to talk in a conversation. Now, what I used to find hard when I'm doing all these interviews and stuff, talking to people, what I find really hard is when I can interject and ask a question. When someone's talking, when I can do that. And basically, I still find that hard, but basically when I was a kid, they sort of taught me, because they noticed this was my big problem, they taught me that this is basically like driving a car. Driving a car into a lane of traffic. Would you, when the lane of traffic is fully packed, that means people are talking all the time, would you drive a car into that lane of traffic? No, because you would hit another car, and then there'll be disruption, and there'll be a big crash. Well, that's what happens in a conversation when you cut someone off mid-flow. And as a dyslexic, I find that very, very, very hard to cut someone off mid-flow. And basically there was this thing where these two people were talking in practice when I was in class. These two people were talking, having a conversation, and my job was to, join in the conversation. And I used to find that so hard to join in that conversation, to join in that. And I find it tricky. I didn't know how to do it, and it was awkward. And guess what? To this day, I still find that hard. Apart from running in certain social situations. For example, let me give you an example. If I'm in a normal social situation where I'm average old me, kind of in there because I want to be in there, and I have no, basically, when I say real outcome, I have no strong reason for doing it. Like for example, I'm in my head, okay, I'm just here. And then I find it really hard to talk to people, to interact, to even hold a conversation to groups of people, especially when it's 3, 4 of us, 5 of us, all talking back and forth. I would be kind of there, but I would get lost in the flow of conversation because there's just too much to do. And as soon as someone said something I'm interested in, I'll be like, I'll say a question about that and be like, and they'd answer that, and he may have said it a few minutes earlier, but I wouldn't be listening because this is so hard to follow that train of conversation. So all these things we find really, really hard as dyslexics, but I do not in any way think that this is a reason why you should not be social, because there's a couple of things I want to get across. It's really, really important. Firstly, you have social anxiety because you're quite socially smart. Not because you're socially smart, like you're good at talking to anyone, any groups of people, like in a social setting, but you can tell when things are being awkward. You can tell that, I don't quite fit. This is the mood of the room. Because guess what was a big reason why some people just seem to not care what other people think of them when they're in social. They can say dumb things, they can do whatever, is because they're not very socially intelligent. They're not thinking. They don't notice the cues that other people give off. They're just going about it, doing whatever. They're only focusing on themselves. But as we're quite socially smart, we can go in a situation and we're not thinking of ourselves, thinking about that person thinks of us and that person thinks of us. And I remember this took me in a very, very bad spot. Basically, when I was in my sixth form, people making fun of me, whatever, I would basically think everyone was thinking about me, but they weren't. But that's how I played. And I knew how socially awkward I was. I just knew that, and it put me in this massive downward spiral. And because I was socially awkward, I became more socially awkward. I became more socially awkward. And so we have to realise that, look, dyslexia does not stop us being social. We just find it hard. And guess how to be more social? How to be more social is learn about it. I wanted to title this podcast, How to Win Friends and Influence People as Dyslexic, or How Dyslexics Can Win Friends and Influence People. Because there's a book called How to Win Friends and Influence People. Quite an old book, but a very, very classic. I listened to it multiple times. It is extremely, extremely valuable. Extremely valuable. And I'd so recommend listening to it and learning about it, because it's not about dyslexia, it's about how you can win friends and influence people. And how you can do it as dyslexic is the same as how other people can do it. Because yes, you're dyslexic, doesn't mean you have to have everything tailored to dyslexia to improve, because you don't. You know what I mean? Just the basic common things and go about and doing that. And of course you have these challenges. But the number one thing I would recommend in terms of this is that basically, I said earlier that like most of the time if we're in a normal social setting, I find it hard to be social. But in the other social setting, for example, there's Toastmasters speaking thing. I used to go to come up there and do a bit of public speaking, or going to some events, or going to certain places. We have an intelligent conversation or whatever. I would be extremely confident there. Why? Simple question, simple thing. Outcome. I knew my outcome for going there. My outcome for example, my outcome in school, for example, like I want to go to school, I want to enjoy it, I want to make an impact, I want to do these things. But so often, like, for example, if I have such a strong outcome, like I want to help these kids, I want to do that, like, it would cloud me making connections with these people. And then, okay, connections with the people and stuff, because they're not thinking the same things I'm thinking in terms of helping kids, doing that, because I ask questions and like, they would give me an answer, and I go, oh, what about this situation? Okay, what should we do here? And they'd be like, oh, stop asking questions, because I wanted to learn the answer of it. And so I sort of learned, because I remember I used to work I was in school for 2 years, and like in this job I was not suited for, but I jumped in the middle of it, and and it was just sort of like, I ended up very good at it, but because I put everything I did into it, but I kind of alienated being friends with people because I focused on doing a good job, if you see what I mean there. So there I was just basically asking questions. How do you fix this problem? How do I do this? How do I do this? And I would go to people and ask questions, but I wasn't very good socially. But my point is, when I went to these kind of like Toastmasters events, when I went to all these things, I was an extremely confident person, because I could go up to anyone, start any sort of conversation, because I knew my outcome. I knew why I was speaking to this person. I knew what I wanted to get out of this outcome, whether I wanted to help someone learn something or do whatever. I would do that. I'd find that really, really helpful. So one of the biggest takeaways I think you can get from this, I'm going to go for these five things that dyslexics find really, really hard, and I find them massively hard, and I hope you can relate. But the biggest thing you have to understand before that is that it does not stop you in any way. You may feel social anxiety. That's because, you do these little 5 things, and you're socially intelligent, but you need to overcome that. How do you overcome that? Is just do it anyway. The biggest tip I can give is, what's your outcome in the situation? Why are you talking to this person? Decide your outcome. Go, oh, my outcome is this. For example, if you get in an argument with someone, you're in an argument with someone, you're just arguing back and forth, and the time passes, and you don't know why you're arguing in the first place. You just have to be right. Or all these situations where you don't know why you're doing, just go with the flow. If you have an outcome in the situation, for example, you're arguing. If you're having an outcome in your argument, like basically you're arguing because you got an opinion and they got an opinion, or you have a disagreement of some sort. But if you actually know your outcome in the beginning, your outcome isn't to argue. And you're like, hold on, we're not meeting our outcome here. Hold on, we need to stop this, do something different, because this is not making any progress whatsoever. So this is what I think in like a social situation. What's my outcome? Have fun. Most of the time, because most of the time there's not a lot of point in talking, to be quite frank. There's not a lot of point in talking. That's connecting. That's sharing stories. But most of the time, there's 2 real reasons why I communicate with people. There's 3 reasons really. The first one is to learn about them. Why do you want to learn about them? Because it makes you connected. It makes you feel connected. It makes you understand them. It makes you interested in that person. And so I like to know about people. I like to know, how they are, what their likes, what their dislikes, what sort of person they are. And I find that extremely fascinating. A lot of dyslexics do know that person. So I ask questions about them. Second thing I like to do is look for ways to help them. How can you help them? Not like, okay, I'm going to go home and make all this plan, but how can you help them in the situation? What advice can you give them in a way that they would understand to help them? Or how could you help them? How could you learn something from that? Or number 3, learn something from that person. How do you learn something from that person? Learning a certain skill, learning a certain philosophy, learning how they think. Those 3 big things. If you're just chatting for no big reason, having fun is obviously one of them. Feeling connected is obviously one of them. Sharing funny stories is obviously one of them. But if you don't have a purpose for why you're doing it, it's often really, really hard for you to be efficient in doing it. Because we find these 5 things really, really hard, and I'm really, really excited to share these with you. So, first thing, I sort of wrote these down. The first thing we find hard is trouble finding the right words. I do this literally all the time, and it's a pain in my backside because I go, oh, you remember the thing I wanted to say, and I struggle then, and they wait there patiently for half an hour when I don't know the word, and this happens far too often. Second thing, not understanding jokes. When people make a joke and everyone laughs, I don't laugh. I mean, whether it's some silly joke, I don't laugh until I get it like 10 seconds later. I go, ha. They go, you just got that? I go, yeah. Or basically, I find it myself that something would happen, the silliest, sort of that simplest thing, but I would laugh because I would find the humour in how basic this is, or the humour out of it, of the smallest things. Other people wouldn't care. And I know that. I know I sometimes don't get jokes. Not remembering things, having trouble messaging people. I do this all the time. Having trouble messaging people. It's just about what you message, and because there's a lot of ways of working around that. You could listen to the message back. You could do that, but it's just messaging people. Trouble with basically the flow of the conversation. Trouble with keeping track of the flow of the conversation is really, really, really hard. And trouble remembering things. With trouble remembering remembering what's been said, remembering this person's name, because remembering things you want to say and remembering things about the situation. I do this all the time. So I'm just trying to read my handwriting here. I'm quite struggling, but misspelling when you're texting, not understanding jokes, trouble finding the right words, remembering names of people, and so these things I find extremely hard. I find it so embarrassing. I go to work all the time and being there for over a year. People say hi to me every single morning. I don't know their name. They go, hi Theo. I go, hiya. I don't know their name. I find it so embarrassing. But it is what it is. But you have to come from the philosophy, because yes, you do these things and it's nice to hear about them and it's nice to feel a sense of connection. But you've got to because I'm really not into, okay, here are the problems with dyslexia and lay them out. Here are the signs and symptoms for dyslexia and lay them out without a solution to these challenges. Because you could say, well, you can try these techniques, you can do that. Well, guess what? I tried to take these techniques for years when I was growing up and nothing's really worked. I still find it hard to do these things. Maybe that's how my brain's wired or whatever. I'm not saying I can't improve upon these. I'm saying I haven't, and I've tried to. But what I am saying is, don't let these things stop you. Have an outcome in the situation when you're talking. Just a little thing. An outcome is what do you want to get out of it to give you a reason for doing it. And so you don't let things stop you. Have an outcome for doing it. And I would say that remember, oftentimes you can remember, for example, you do something stupid, say something stupid, do something stupid, and that people would maybe think of you differently or do whatever. Basically remember that they don't really care about you in terms of, they're not thinking about, oh, this person mucked up all these things. They don't really care. And what I mean by that is they care, they don't care about you to think badly of you, but ultimately they don't, what's the harm? We're the harshest critic of ourselves, critic of ourselves when it comes to socially massively. So we've got to understand that, look, okay, I did this thing stupid, I'm feeling this emotion, I've got to fix this emotion out, not care about the thing I've done stupid. Yes, maybe fix that, but what I need to do is sort my emotion. My emotions is the problem, not the thing. Not everyone else, not the thing. The emotion is the problem. Because once you sort out the emotional side of things, where you kind of pulled in so many directions, and they can focus on, okay, how can I fix the thing? Can I actually fix the problem, learn new skills, do that, or change the way I view it, and then working on that? I really feel, guys, this is a really valuable conversation we had. Well, one-way conversation. Please leave your comments and ask questions or whatever. But I really, really feel this should be really valuable to understand, to take into our lives, because I do think socially, in terms of talking in social groups, is a very, very under talked about topic when it comes to dyslexia, especially on my own side, especially socially, is one of the biggest challenges I faced. I'm facing the biggest challenges other dyslexics face is how to interact socially. We're all right one-to-one, we're all right if we know what we want, but we're not all right when it comes to big social groups, and oftentimes that can lead to the most pain, and then with the most pain, the most bad beliefs and downward cycle. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. I'll see you again soon.